The following is an original production of AZPM News.
Arizona Science is supported by Research Corporation for Science Advancement.
For Arizona Public Media, I'm Leslie Tolbert, Regents Professor Emerita in Neuroscience at the University of Arizona, and this is Arizona Science. Our guest today is Laura Condon. Laura is a professor in hydrology and atmospheric sciences with broad expertise in water use and water sustainability issues. She'll be one of the speakers in this week's College of Science public lecture series. Thanks very much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Before we discuss your upcoming presentation, tell us a little bit about your background. It's in addition to your academic credentials, you have lots of experience as a water management and engineering consultant for the federal government, for instance. Mm-hmm. Tell us about that.
Yeah, sure. So I would say that my water management experience started very young because I grew up on a farm. So irrigation was my first water management experience in Colorado. And that's where I really got a love and an interest for water and really just kind of wondering like, well, how do you get from snowpack in the Rockies to this water I'm using here and what controls that? And that's what really got me interested and sent me on my path to engineering. And then I worked doing consulting, environmental consulting in Colorado for several years. And I went and worked for the Bureau of Reclamation, where I was working doing really large-scale studies of water supply and demand and potential future imbalances between supply and demand. And I really just liked that work. I liked thinking about what are the risks, what are the potential futures that we could be facing, and what are the decisions we can make today that might make things look better.
And that sort of study requires you to develop mathematical models, right?
Yeah.
Tell us about how you use models.
Yeah, so I would say working in that applied area is what really got me interested in numerical modeling and realized the need for physical modeling, because if you want to ask questions about the future that go outside things we've seen in the past, a stream gauge is helpful to you. But it's not the whole story. You need to be able to play all sorts of what-if scenarios, and that's where modeling comes in. And that's really what I focus a lot of my work on today as a researcher.
What's your take on our water situation in the desert Southwest today?
Ooh, I'm a little nervous. We are experiencing a mega drought across the southwestern U.S., and the snowpack is not looking great right now. So I can't say that I'm feeling very optimistic for our current water situation. If I was looking at silver linings, I would say that there's a lot of increased awareness and understanding of the situation we're in. I think within a lot of Arizona and Tucson, there's been a longstanding understanding that we live in a desert, but across the entire Colorado River Basin, understanding that we're going to have to make some hard choices, and we're already making hard choices. It's just we're not in an easy situation right now.
How difficult are these choices to make? Are people with you when it's clear that something needs to be done?
It's a little outside my research area. I don't work specifically in policy, and I think at this point, a lot of the things we know about what's happening with the drought in the Colorado River, we know that we're up against shortages, and that we have to think about how we're managing the water in Lake Mead, for example. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really becoming a policy discussion that I don't think people are pushing back on science, saying, no, we don't think we're in a drought or anything like that. It's really difficult. There's a long history of agreements, water law that is all, across 7 states. So very difficult.
Are we getting better or worse, in your view, in water conservation as time goes by?
Great question. I would say that I think that we are getting better. There's lots of examples of cities growing without actually using more water, or increased crop production, that we get more, they would say crop per drop of water. So I think there's a lot of really hopeful examples of places where we can use water more efficiently. Across the board, are we using water sustainably? Definitely not. Across the board, are we prepared for mega droughts, for, droughts that are unprecedented, that we haven't seen before, for extreme flooding and other extreme events? I don't think so. There's a lot of work to do.
In your upcoming public lecture, I understand you're going to have several UA colleagues with you on stage, and you're going to be discussing how human intelligence plays a role in not just water conservation, but also just generally earth science. Tell us about that.
Sure. A lot of the work I do is around modeling the hydrology, terrestrial hydrology. So where water goes from bedrock to treetops, how watersheds are responding and changing. And what I do a lot of work on is a national platform. So we simulate all of the hydrology of the entire U.S. at 1 kilometer resolution. We actually just released a map of water table depths at 30-meter resolution across the entire U.S., which has never been done before that. And so we build these really huge, complicated models to understand these systems. And we build these models on the best possible observations we have, our best understanding of physics, of how water flows through porous media, how water flows through rivers, what happens, how evapotranspiration works. All of these things are built into our models. And increasingly, we use more and more machine learning as part of that. And this is, incredibly powerful, positive thing. We're able to accelerate our models. We're able to, do things like create that 30-meter map that used a lot of the stuff we have from our traditional models, but combined that with a machine learning approach. So one of the questions, as I'm working in this data in this realm with huge amounts of data and large models, trying to make these really hard predictions, is okay, what's the role of AI going forward, and what's the role of the scientist? And that's really what this talk is going to be about. It's going to be thinking about the history of earth science and what we know about the planet Earth and how we've come to know that, how we all have this kind of conceptual idea of how Earth works. Even just the fact that Earth is round is something that none of us, except for the astronauts listening to this, have actually personally observed, right? So we've built up this whole conceptual understanding of how the planet works. And now we're at this really interesting juncture where we have these really, really powerful tools that can make all sorts of predictions, but kind of almost without our understanding.
In a way, the machine is producing much more information than you can possibly absorb and use. Mm-hmm. And so you're trying to break down into teams that will be able to probe deeply in one direction and another in another direction?
I would say it's a little different than that. It's kind of like what we can see with machine learning and with artificial intelligence is that it's able to extract information and patterns from data just with very exceptionally. It can do that because it's working in really high dimensional spaces that we can't think in, and that our models operate a little bit differently than that. So we can now get tools where we can just feed them a bunch of data and get something out in a different way than we could in the past, where we were more feeding in equations and how we think things work. And so the question is kind of not really like what's spitting out of it, but how do we direct that process so that we still are improving our own human understanding. And so we're still moving things forward in a way that is productive for the future, because there's a lot of questions that we want to answer that are these big kind of unknown that you can't really just use a model to spit out an answer. And we still have to learn a lot about how the Earth works and how the Earth is changing and what that means for us. So it's really kind of thinking about how we can best use artificial intelligence to accelerate human intelligence, as opposed to having artificial intelligence kind of replace us in some things.
And it must be very important to have human intelligence in many different areas as you go about this big project.
Absolutely, yeah. So we're thinking about it within the earth sciences, and you mentioned it's going to be we have a group talking. So we have kind of a community discussion group within the Department of Hydrology and Atmospheric Sciences that has come together to talk about and think about how this relates to all of our research. So we have professors doing research in all different areas of hydrology, but across the board, we're thinking about, okay, how do we deal with these new tools that are coming, and not just how do we deal with them, but how do we make the best use of them to make improvements faster, right? That's really our goal, and make discoveries faster that can help us make better decisions sooner. We need to make decisions right now.
Best use is a really important phrase. Yeah. How do you make the best use of what must feel like infinite data. You have to be very selective in the data you study, you plug into your models, and then you have to be very careful about always assuring that what the model spits out does make some sense. So there's a human machine interaction going on all the time, and then AI, I assume, is going to be very helpful in doing some of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is kind of where we see our role as scientists is in asking the right questions and being curious about things that we think will matter, and trying to bring the right data to the table. Because when you think about all of the satellite data we have, all of the reams of forecasting data and simulation data we have, that we have to really be thinking carefully about how we put things together so we get answers that make sense and that are useful and that can build on each other.
Thanks very much, Laura. This is just fascinating. I know your talk is going to be exciting, and you're going to have a group with you.
Yeah.
So all of you will be very interesting to listen to. Laura Condon is a professor in the Department of Hydrology and Atmospheric Sciences with a special focus in large-scale issues in water sustainability. You can listen to this and all Arizona Science conversations at azpm.org/Arizona Science. I'm Leslie Tolbert.
Thank you to Research Corporation for Science Advancement for their support of Arizona Science.
This has been an original production of AZPM News.